Yes, I've been reading this interesting book, How to Operate a Supernatural. Understanding the Nature of the Unseen Realms. The Apostle Caris wrote on. I was gifted this book a few years back when Jaden was still the president of Kenya, the former president of the Republic of Kenya, His Excellency um, Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, when he was the president of Kenya. That's when I was gifted this book back then. And things were a bit easy to maneuver spiritually. Back then, we had a very jovial president who had a very simple life. Maybe because he was Catholic. Only fast during Lent. And I think that is why things were a bit easy to maneuver spiritually. Yes, there were tough times. There was a time when inflation was rocking the nation. But remember, he was an economist, and as an economist, when you have studied economics, you will understand that one of the best ways to create money is to find a way to enhance liquidity in the economy, either by simply printing money, monetary easing, or reducing interest rates, or reducing avenues that would limit circulation of money. So you'll find a way, for instance, if you cannot be able to do projects which would make sure that money is not circulating in the economy, what you then have to do is do what? What you have to do is find money from whatever source you can find, from debt, from grants. Then you pump that money into the economy so that the money can circulate. Yeah, the problem with this is sometimes there will be inflation. But inflation is not necessarily bad because it makes people to work. There were tough times, but they were not extremely tough economic times during the 9.5 years that Uhuru Kenyatta reigned. A lot of people do not understand that Uhuru Kenyatta did not govern for 10 years. He governed for 9.5 years. He came to power after March 2013, and then he handed over power slightly after August 2022. So he did not govern for 10 years, he governed for around 9.5 years. So we still owe him around 6 months according to the constitution. So we can say that William Ruto did not ascend to government after the constitutional term limit of 10 years for president, but rather after maybe Uhuru Kenyatta felt that it's too much, this hustle and noise. I'm not going to say that I started after March, so the next president should have governed after March, because the elections that ushered in Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto were done in March 2013. So the elections that should have ushered in William Ruto should actually have been done in the 5th year of the second term of Uhuru Kenyatta, which would have been in August 2023. So maybe you can say this is also an unconstitutional government because it don't came it did not come actually to power in a constitutional way. But don't send the Subaru boys. You're just trying to understand the law. I'm not a lawyer. I just try to grasp the law. So let us go to the law of economics. It's guided by this book, How to Operate a Supernatural, and it's talking about the power of faith. Faith that moves mountains. I've not read a lot of it. See that I've folded some sections. I don't remember reading a lot about this book, How to Operate the Supernatural. And you will find that in the current economic matrix of the country, we have a situation whereby we have a president who is publicly seen. I don't know whether he does that in private. I'm not here to talk to him unless he wants to appoint me as the first prince of the Republic of Kenya or his special envoy at Raj to talk about his matters. But he has not given me any position. Maybe he should borrow from Pope Leo 14 and appoint some of us. He can appoint 7 princes and name them 7 first princes of the Republic of Kenya as head of state, not as head of government. Because I have observed that as a nation, it has been the norm that presidents of Kenya have not really exercised their powers as heads of state. They have always exercised their powers as heads of government. So they tend to govern more than to head. So as heads of state, as a head of state, the president should be able to organize the state in a manner that allows continuity in government, or rather allows continuity not just in government but rather in the state. And this is where you find that in monarchies like the UK, they have a head of state and a prime minister is head of government. Also, the prime minister will come and go. So when you decide to appoint us as first prince of the republic, we don't have to go. Governments can come and go and we remain in office until we die, and then you can appoint another person. You can appoint 7 or you can appoint 45, whichever number you think is magical enough, but you just leave room for the next 4 or 5 presidents to appoint. That's how you exercise your powers as head of state, because when you make such appointments of state, which are not elective, and at the same time which are not constitutional, then you allow the nation to have voices beyond the political voices. And then a state is allowed to have continuity. And that's what you can probably borrow from, let us say, the Vatican, where they appoint roles like cardinals and bishops, which serve far beyond the incubacy of the reigning pope. But that's not what I was supposed to discuss. I was supposed to discuss about this power of how to operate the supernatural. And we were talking about the economics of the country. And you find that in the current order, there is what we call technically a cash crunch. There is a cash crunch in the economy. Money is not circulating. Let us talk the reality as it is. William Ruto may have managed to control inflation, to lower the food prices, but there are some basics that I think that William Ruto should work on. One of those basics is there is no money circulating in the economy. And how can you ensure that there is money circulating in the economy? So William Ruto, you have to understand how the nation of Kenya works. Because I don't think you really understand how the nation of Kenya works, because if you can understand how the nation of Kenya works, then you can be able to make sure that there is money circulating in the economy. And how you ensure there is money circulating in the economy is by pumping money to the lowest echelons of the pyramid of money circulation. And this is where you find programs like Kazi kwa Vijana were initiated by the former president. So you make sure that there is money coming directly to the grassroots, to the people, so that they can spend it. Another way is to ensure that you initiate programs that ensure that people are employed at the lowest echelons in the grassroots, so that money can circulate. And this is why you can borrow from the man you really like to quote as your mentor, Mwai Kibaki. When Mwai Kibaki came to power, he initiated road projects that were labor intensive. So in the rural areas, for instance, a normal mtu wa mkono in the civil works will get between 700 and 1,000 shillings in a day. So let us say, for instance, I'm at Naseria Nasaruni, a village at Kajiado West, bordering Kajiado North. So if you want to improve the economy of this region, how do you do it? One, there are roads around here which are not tarmacked. I'm not asking you to tarmac all of them. But how about doing cabro works? So cabro works, there will be guys, young men who will be employed on a daily basis for 700 and 1,000 shillings. They will come, they will do the digging of the trenches, the digging of the road, the filling in, the arranging of the cabros. Then there will be the marshals doing the masonry works. And in the process, you can find that you have created temporary jobs of between 2,000 and 10,000 people. Some of them directly and others indirectly, because there will be the mama wa chakula, there will be shopkeepers, there will be the man selling makaa, there will be that guy who sells soup and mutura. All these are jobs that you create by just creating that project. It's a project you can create with a minimum of, let us say, 300 million shillings in a financial year. So within, let us say, 5 years, you have pumped in 300 million shillings times 5. How much is that? That's 1.5 billion shillings. Now, if you do the multiplication factor of 5, that for every 1 shilling that you have pumped into that local economy, it will create 5 shillings by the time the cycle dies, because the money will move from the person you have given, the contractor, who will employ a few engineers and a few supervisors and project managers. Those are jobs that you have created. Then it will move to the accountants and the cashiers on the ground, and the foremen and the merchants and the fundis and the watu wa mkono and the mama wa chakula and the mutu wa supu. And this money which has relatively gone directly, then will go directly into mutu wa bota. We'll have to carry these people as they go to enjoy their kinywaji on the weekend, or to eat the nyama choma in that place. So this money keeps on moving. The person at the butchery where they will buy the meat will also buy airtime, atalipa mutu wa kanjo, and they will pay the rent. So this money moves. And that's how you make sure that money is pumped in the economy. William Ruto has not managed to do this. Because if you are to pump 100 billion shillings at the grassroots, creating such jobs, labor-intensive jobs, then you make sure that you have made sure that the money is circulating in the economy. Okay, this one you have not succeeded on that. So maybe another thing that you can be able to do is like that kazi kwa vijana which we talked about, where the youths are paid not because necessarily they will sweep very well, but because you want to make sure that the money is going directly to the grassroots. The other thing is you can lower the threshold of the money for Inua Jamii from maybe, I don't know whether it's 60 years you give or how many. You can lower that to 45 years or even 40 years. You can say that any man or woman who is not currently employed will receive 2,000 shillings, regardless of their economic status, as long as they apply for that money in their local jurisdictions. That will make sure that you have increased the amount of money coming to these households every month, which will then be spent over a cycle. And the money is seen circulating and going into people's pockets. Another thing you can do is find a way of lowering taxes. Because let us be honest, I was listening to an article that said that the housing program has raised 111 billion shillings. That's over a period of, say, 3 years. And you can understand that the people who are employed are very few. One paycheck of, let us say, 50,000 supports maybe around 10 jobs. So when you take the amount of money that's supposed to support these jobs, because let us be honest with, let's say you have increased the charges for housing and for NSSF and social health. You have increased these charges. I'm not saying it's a problem. Let us do the maths. For instance, if the housing program was able to sack 111 billion shillings over a period of 3 years, and you can imagine that this money is not spent instantaneously. It's not that the government, after taking this money, is pumping it in instantaneously directly to the economy. They are sucking it, holding it, hoarding it, and then they get just little amounts and throw here and throw here and throw here and throw here. So the majority of the money remains in the bank. So what does this happen? And then, before I say what happens because of this, and then this amount is not a benefit to the people who are paying for it. Because if it was a benefit, then they can be able to cash it somewhere. Because they will say, I have assets worth, let us say, 50,000 in the form of housing. It is now an asset that they can go and use it as a collateral somewhere. Now, this is a tax, which actually lowers the ability to get money elsewhere. Those people who are based, I don't have based as employers. So they have more liabilities, which makes the possibility of them gaining more money somewhere using their resources as they were coming in less. So it means that there is less opportunities for money coming in. And then when you had removed that 111 billion shillings, what you did is this: you curtailed the opportunities of the jobs and the leeway that these people had to spend on creating small jobs like kukula mahindi hapo barabarani, or replacing that instant shower. And then you do electrical works. 0716209021, call me. Now replacing that instant shower, or replacing that switch or that socket, or doing some little project on the side hapo nyumbani. Because now this person is taxed more, he will less likely be promoted because the boss, also the employer, has to chip in and give more taxes in order to maintain this employee. Because now If you have done jobs, if you have done businesses, if you have done like a project, if you are paying someone 1,000 shillings, that's not necessarily the cost of maintaining that person. Because if you are paying 1,000, then you have to chip in something for housing for that person, something for social health for that person, something for NHIF to boost that person. Then there is electricity, then maybe transport. You'll find that that person you normally pay 1,000 shillings, that is the amount you give them, but the employee cost is maybe 3,000 shillings. Maybe it was 2,000 because of all these extras, now it's 3,000. So you choke in the ability of the employer to expand and probably promote this employee in the future, all give them bonuses and more money so that they can pump it to the economy. What may you, and then the employee cannot expand, the employer is not expanding, the employee cannot um, invest in themselves, maybe for more education, maybe like a small plot somewhere, buy some shares, some investments here and there, open like a kiosk, open like a kinyozi. They cannot be able to do it. That is why I really observed, and I observed this with a lot of pain. As I was going the other day, I buy my stuff at Rizuri in Yamakima in the CBD. I observed that the people there, the bosses, employees, they have lost weight. A shop maybe which had 10 employees now has around 4, and they look worried. A shop where you would see a queue of people buying, not just one, so many shops. I meet these observations. It pained me a lot because when you reduce the people's purchasing power, what happens is that you are killing the nation. You're killing the economy. And I'm not saying this because I am want to criticize anybody. I'm not criticizing anybody. Now I've appointed myself as a first prince of the Republic of Kenya. I don't need to be appointed by anyone. So I'll say this on behalf of the people, on behalf of the state. Because the government is not the state. The head of state is the head of state, but he is not the state. We are the state. You are the state. You are the people. Without you, there will be no nation or the nation state called Kenya. It pained me that we can have a policy in this nation that would emaciate us, that would emaciate the nation, that would make sure that there is no money circulating in the economy. What are we doing? I don't take apologies that I advised someone who used to work at some policy think tank at Harambee. I was when Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto. I told them that the only way to make sure that a president governs beyond his constitutional limits is to find all manner of resources from whatever sources, whether it is loans, grants, concessions, so that they can do legacy projects that would help the nation beyond their mandate. And I know this policy was taken over and it was implemented, and Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto went to the Far East everywhere and they looked for money and they pumped it into the economy and they did projects like SGR, Expressway, and all manner of projects elsewhere, including the surveillance cameras. They improved the security of the nation. So many things were done. And it's true, it was done. And money was found. And as much as there were times when there was no money in the economy, there were times when money was there. And at times, personally, I did not benefit financially. I was broke during the Uhuru Kenyatta years, and I had been broke during the Baki years. But things were happening. Roads were being built. Others were enjoying. They were buying cars. Some were buying helicopters. I did not buy any of them. I did not even buy a television. Maybe I bought one. Who knows? It was stolen. But there was money. And that was not a bad policy necessarily. So William Ruto, as president of Kenya, head of state, you must rethink the strategies that you are implementing to govern the nation. And you must make sure that money is circulating, it is going to people's pockets. I don't know how you will do it, just do it. If I was William Ruto, how do I make sure that the narrative changes within, let us say, 60 days? First of all, I would call Safaricom. I would tell them to do randomly, to send 1 million subscribers 1,000 shillings a day. Do they send this? Tomorrow wanatumia hawa hivyo, that's 10 billion shillings that you have pumped directly into the economy within 10 days. And you would see the impact. Small amounts of money, but sent everywhere within 60 days, the narrative changes. Just a simple solution that I'm giving. I'm not giving a very big solution. A simple solution. Airtel Money. Your active subscribers, send them 500 shillings of Airtel Money.